So guys, very different type of video today. In the background you probably have some gameplay of me playing some PS4, and I think it's FIFA in the background. So yeah, I hope you guys do enjoy that. I'm trying to combine a few things that I enjoy editing, and just this is pretty much a simple edit. Just play some gameplay in the background and discuss some of the boxing and some of the more controversial stuff that goes on in the sport. And yeah, a bit something that's a bit left behind is the British boxing's Cold War between the promoters, and that's going to be the kind of basis for the duration of the gameplay and what we're going to discuss today. So I do hope you guys enjoy it. It gives you something to watch instead of just listen to. And yeah, let me know your thoughts on it, and I'd be interested to hear all of that. So let's get right into it. British boxing's Cold War. Obviously, you have the promotional sort of side of the debate. They have, Eddie Hearn with Matchroom Boxing. You have Frank Warren, Queensbury Promotions. Sorry, Mick Hennessy with his sort of side of the deal, and you have Cyclone Promotions who have a few fighters here and there as well. Some very good fighters. So those are kind of the main four in Britain. You do have some other guys. Yeah, you do have some other guys. Kalle and Nissa Sauerland in Germany, and then a few others. Very small promoters. Many of the boxing fans probably wouldn't have heard of them, but they're just very small. So we're not gonna include them in this video. Then over in the States, you obviously have Bob Arum and Top Rank. Leonard Ellaby and Mayweather with Mayweather Promotions, Al Heyman and PBC, and Lou DiBella, those sort of guys. So Kathy Duva main events as well. So I mean, if we get a chance, we'll briefly go on to America, but the sole focus here will probably be Britain. Since I know many of the people are British boxing fans that probably tune into my channel, or Kiwis. So shout out to you guys. So I mean, it's difficult to say for me whether or not why this has happened. I mean, obviously Frank Warren. We have to run down a brief history, I guess. Frank Warren was with Sky, and something's happened, and obviously they've fallen apart. So obviously he's gone over to set up his own channel in Box Nation. He's put on numerous amount of shows, and he's had to put his own money into the startup of that channel. So yeah, maybe that's where some of it stems from, because Eddie Hearn is obviously the son of Barry Hearn, and Barry Hearn used to promote big fighters back in the day on Sky. So yeah, I mean, it's a weird one, because he probably looks at Eddie thinking, oh well, Eddie's just swooped in and taken my sort of spot on Sky, and Frank's slightly bitter. I don't know how people, these promoters in particular, I don't know how they're thinking. As if I did, I certainly wouldn't be behind a laptop screen recording this video. I'd probably be a lot richer, but such is life, and you get to enjoy it. So at least I get to say my 2 pence on it. I mean, I'd like to add, I'm not against any promoter. I don't really like any promoter, as long as they're putting on good boxing shows. I'm not really I'm not really fussed. I don't really care what goes on. But it is a bit disturbing, because I mean, in recent times, let's talk of recent times, you have some examples. Obviously, one of the examples that they would work together, where it has to be done, I guess, is the Bradley Skeet Sam Eggington fight. Bradley Skeet was the mandatory for the British title. He obviously came over to Birmingham, went over to Matchroom and Sky Sports, and he soundly defeated Sam Eggington for the British and Commonwealth titles. So I mean, that shows there's evidence that they would work together, but maybe they were forced to work together because of the mandatory situation between Eggington and Skeet. But yeah, I mean, For me, I just don't know whether or not they'd work with higher profile sort of fighters, and it seems like they distance themselves from higher profile fights that could be made. We'll come on to that in a minute, but you know, there's other obviously promoters. Yeah, there's other promoters. Mick Hennessy. I'm not sure what the situation is with Tyson Fury, but he's still there or thereabouts. He used to promote Nick Blackwell, and there was there's obviously, I guess, no love lost between all three of those promoters, and Barry McGuigan probably hates Eddie Hearn as well. So I think everyone hates Eddie Hearn, which is a bit of a laugh. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult to see. I mean, if you look at the big fights, especially with Frank and Eddie, they don't really make the fights that maybe the fans want, or maybe they make it too late. If you look at in particular, you have Flanagan versus Crawler is probably the biggest fight that they failed to make. Obviously, I don't know what sort of purses are being discussed, but with me, it's I don't know. I'm getting loads of news at the moment that Chris Eubank Jr. has the fight's made with Arthur Abraham, so I'm looking at my phone at the moment. But yeah, obviously there's rumours that there's going, both of the fighters, Crawler versus Flanagan, they both want about 1 million apiece, but Frank doesn't want to send Flanagan over to Sky, and you know, what's the other one? Sorry, Eddie doesn't want to send Crawler over to Box Nation because for him, he's built a massive sort of profile in Manchester with Sky on regular Sky without being a pay-per-view fighter. So yeah, I mean that's not a pay-per-view fight, but there's certainly a big fight for the city of Manchester, and obviously they want the fight to be made. But in terms of in terms of the fight being made or it being realistic, it doesn't seem it doesn't seem any closer. It seems even further away. I know Mikey Garcia's fighting Adrian Broner. I done a video of that, on that a few days ago. So yeah, do check that out. But that may leave sort of Linares wanting to fight Flanagan possibly. I know there's been some talks from Frank's side, but in terms of domestic fights, you have to look later down the line in the future. Obviously, the McGuigans have made the fight with O'Hara Davis versus Josh Taylor, and Josh Taylor is a fantastic fighter, and so is O'Hara Davis, and it's a very very good fight for British fight fans. And these are two sort of top level prospects at 140. So it's interesting to see that fight. I'm actually surprised that they made that fight. I thought they'd probably try and let it marinate and make that fight. So there is evidence to suggest that they've been working together, all the promoters, individually, I guess, but they've all been working to to make the fights. But in terms of other fights, potential fights, I mean, Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois. If Daniel Dubois becomes a household name on Box Nation, would would Frank be willing to send him over? It's difficult to see. I know that fight might not be anywhere near close, but if you look at the rise of AJ, if Frank has that effect for Daniel Dubois on Box Nation, it'll be very interesting to see how that pans out. Maybe even AJ might even be relocated in the States, so we don't know yet. So there's a lot of questions with that, in terms of potential fighters. Would he send over Liam Walsh, who's just had a big fight, against Gervonta Davis? Would he send him over to Sky? I know he's not the biggest of names, but would he send him over? Try and fight Crawler or someone like that. I don't know. Would Eddie even accommodate him? Is a different question. There's a lot of tangible factors involved in here, and or even intangible, that you could say emotionally driven. So yeah, I don't know. It's so weird that I don't know what's going to happen, why it's going to happen. I just wanted to discuss what why, or at least some of the examples and there are examples to suggest that, you know, they do work together, but there's others that, you know, they certainly have not worked together, and they will not work together. On Billy Joe Saunders, maybe another guy. You know, you have other sort of middleweights, I guess, in Eddie's sort of stable. Not stellar names, but you know, you have some, especially if Eubank was still with Sky. I'm not sure if he still is. They discuss as if you know, he's still with them, but I don't think so, as far as I know, because I saw the Eddie Hearn interview the other day. So yeah, I mean, it's a big question on whether they want to work together, whether they actually hate each other. You know, in terms of working together, there are certainly fights that are more profitable than others. You know, for I think for both guys, for you know, in terms of a city perspective, I think Flanagan versus Crawler would be a big fight. Not so much in the UK, but definitely in the city of Manchester, and I think they'd get them some decent share of money on both sides. But obviously, that fight's not happening for one reason or another. You know, there's a few other fights, not many, because Frank's stable is very very talented, but in terms of their you know, marketability, I don't think that some of the fighters are as marketable as the Matchroom fighters. And you know, the Matchroom fighters, obviously some of them aren't as good as the you know, the Box Nation side, like, you know, Laurent Sokolis and those sort of guys. He's a prospect compared to some of the other prospects on Frank's side, but they're more marketable, and you know, they certainly get a large amount of exposure on Sky Sports. So I mean, you know, you have to discuss the monopoly that that Eddie Hearn has with Sky as well. That's very very important. You know, we have to consider that. You know, many of the fighters now, they're not able to get that you know, that breakthrough in terms of profile. Maybe just because they're one, you know, they're not that sort of person. You know, someone like a Terry Flanagan is a very very bland character. Let's be honest, but he's a decent fighter, I guess. So and on top of that, he's on a channel and you know, a forum that he's not able to grow and succeed, because it's such a small niche audience. It's a very very hardcore audience, whereas the Sky, obviously the Sky side is, you know, built towards the casuals as well. So yeah, I mean, you've got to look at both sides. It's not just them. You know, I think we've also got to consider someone like Carl Frampton and Cyclone and Barry McGuigan. I think Cyclone have done a fantastic job with Carl Frampton. You know, marketing him. He's a you know, he's a decent. He seems like a decent guy in his interviews. He seems fairly marketable. You know, the fans get behind him because he's from Ireland, Belfast, and you know, he's obviously won a few world titles in multiple weight classes, and he's been in some, you know, fantastic fights as well. So you know, the fans definitely get behind him, and I think Cyclone have done a good job. They've obviously got him on Box Nation early, then they got him on Sky as well just before that. Then they got him back on Sky for the Scott Quigg fight, which he won, and then obviously he's gone back. Sorry, he's gone over. He's been on ITV as well. So they've you know, they've sort of networked him very very well, and they've allowed him to you know, breathe, I guess. You know, not only just on one network where he's forced to work with one sort of promoter, or you know, that as a co-promotion. He's worked with you know, Barry McGuigan and Cyclone have worked with various different promoters and allowed the, you know, the Carl Frampton sort of profile to grow and grow and gather momentum. So I think, you know, if you're a young fighter, you definitely need to look at that sort of model. I definitely think, you know, there's a lot of fights that potentially won't be made because of animosity between the promoters, and it's emotionally driven. So that's kind of my opinion on it. I mean, I'm going to round up there because it's not been a rant, but you know, I don't want to go on too long. And yeah, that's just my thoughts on that. It doesn't get taught, you know, it doesn't get discussed and debated as much. So I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on it. Very very different type of video, as I said, and I try to make this a regular segment on the show, you know, on the channel. Try and do something different and incorporate, you know, different ideas, not just have the same old, you know, sort of roundup videos and, you know, same sort of concept. Try and branch out a little bit as well. So yeah, again, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, share and subscribe so it gets up to a larger boxing audience, and maybe even some people who jump on the gaming stuff like it as well. So yeah, take care guys, and I'll speak to you soon. Peace.
Great moment for the goal scorer and for his team. It surely won the game in the dying moments.
It must have, and it was a really good take as well. Didn't have much time in the...
That's the final score, 2-1 here.